Jeffrey Klubeck did a degree in communication. He's a speaker. He's an adjunct faculty member. And how did he transition into a coach? And what particularly did he do to the SMART goals to better serve his clients? SMART stands for S for simple, M for measurable, A for achievable, R for realistic, and T for time-bound. So let's find out. Welcome to the Excellent Executive Coaching Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Katrina Burhus, and today we have Jeffrey Klubeck. Welcome, Jeffrey.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Katrina. It's great to be here.
So, Jeffrey, you're a coach, right? So I wanted to know, how did you get into coaching, and what's your background?
Coaching is one of the things that I do. I hesitate to say I'm a coach. At this point in my career, it's one of the things that I provide. I'm a consultant, trainer, speaker, author. But back to coaching. Before I even knew what coaching was, I felt like I was coaching. I'm an empathic behavioral style, and all my life, people have felt comfortable talking to me, opening up. In junior high, I remember my mom got me my own phone line because I was tying up the phone too much with all of my friends, having deep conversations, and I thought it was normal. But my mom told me when I was 14 years old, she made this Post-it note saying, "The doctor is in," and she checked the box. And then I looked at her, and that was the first time I had an awareness that I was having deeper level conversations than just normal friendship. Well, fast forward, many years later, I had a master's degree in communication. I was an adjunct professor of public speaking and had real good command of all of the communication modules and soft skills. I was teaching public speaking, and people were terrified, let alone the fact that it was college level courses. They were afraid of public speaking. And so about 10 years into that, I got introduced to personal and professional growth. And I said, what's this coaching stuff? And I decided, wow, if I learn how to coach, I'll be a better professor, or I'll be a better coach because I'm a professor. And so there was an integration right there between personal professional growth and academe for me, an adjunct professor, and building my coaching practice.
Are you still practicing as an adjunct professor?
No, I have mixed feelings about it. I thought I would be in the classroom until I died, right? Because I loved it so much. However, I got so good at coaching and then creating my coach's training program and Coach the Coach and installing coaching programs, speaking and marketing communication, and ultimately my Coach Jeffrey brand. I would white label my services and get assignments that took me around the world. There was a couple of years there where I was in 4 continents, 12 countries, working with entrepreneurs, speaking at events, and it was hard to commit to the brick and mortar classroom. I tried to do everything I could to hang on to both. I put everything online, and I was zooming in with all kinds of crazy hours with my students to be available. But if I was gone for a couple of weeks at a time, that threatened the integrity of the brick and mortar experience. So when I got to 20 years complete of teaching, I retired after spring of 2017. So 5 years now I've been retired from teaching and just building my personal and professional growth practice.
So you mentioned in your comments that motivation plus accountability equals results.
Yes.
So
yes.
Comment on it.
Well, first of all, I might end up coming back to this, but integration, right? A lot of times people are looking for the answer. A lot of times you've probably heard this. People say, what's the best way to, and you got to rephrase the question because there's multiple ways, right? So we look for integration. And it's motivation alone may not get it done. Accountability alone may not get it done. But if we combine them, we're in a better position. So motivation breaks down to internal and external. How do you motivate people? Well, externally, you give them strategies, tactics, and resources. Right? But then if you give somebody the good map and the best boat and the best crew and a blank check, if they believe the world is flat, they're not going. So how do you motivate somebody internally and intervene in limiting beliefs, bad habits, patterns, peer group, on and on, right? So if we can combine the internal, the external, and motivation side, we're going to be in better shape. And then accountability. Accountability, Dr. Katrina, I'm curious what your experience with this word is, but it's usually something that people only accuse others of not having, like integrity, right? And so accountability is, people think they have it because they can pronounce it, but it's deeper than that. Accountability to our word, our potential, our gifts, right? So when we combine the willingness to be counted with motivation, we're going to be in better shape.
And so, for example, can you give an example with your client of how you made them more accountable or they were more accountable to themselves and in these different ways?
Yeah. One place to start is goal setting. That's really, really, really important is goal setting. And a lot of times people believe they're setting goals, but it's a hope, a wish, or a dream. So you can infuse accountability in the goal setting. Like you take a model like SMART, if you've heard of SMART goal setting. I think there's some flaws in it, and I came up with my own version of SMART, but at least it's good because it's got that T in there, time bound. And then it's got the S and the M in there, specific and measurable. So if you can declare with specifics, measurability, and a by when what you want, now you've set a foundation for accountability, right? You could go deeper than that. When I'm working privately with clients, I'll build enough rapport with them to get the most honest answer I can get to the question, what are the three most important things in your world that have to be different than they are today? And if they can answer as close to the three most important as possible, then it doesn't matter what's happening with thing number 17 or thing number 84, as long as they're making progress towards 1, 2, and 3 every day. So when we build enough rapport to get an honest answer to what really needs to be different in my world, what are the most important things? If we could get as close to honest on that as possible, we've set a good foundation for being able to ask and account. What are you doing this week? Well, are these still the three most important things? Has something changed? Let me know. Let's update our word around this. So we want a basis for what's true, what's important. And it's a trick. We have to be okay with what's not getting done in exchange for knowing that the most important things are getting done. A lot of people have a hard time figuring out what are the most important things. Yes. So then they get blown around like a feather in the wind.
Yes, and you can do the Pareto law of what is the 20% that gives the 80% result.
Well, there's great questions we can ask as leaders to get people more comfortable or able to declare what they want, how bad they want it, what they're willing to do to get it, right? But without that, it's like I had this vision in my head of turning a garden hose on at the wall, right? But then following it where it's going and snaking and spraying water everywhere until I grab it and point it somewhere.
So what is interesting is, okay, the SMART goals, maybe you'll tell exactly the listeners what each one is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and what is even more interesting, because I think a lot of people know what a SMART goal is, but is where do you add? Where do you think it's insufficient and you've added?
Oh, thank you for asking. This is one of my favorite things to talk about. And it's a matter of semantics to some degree. As a communication guy, I'll admit that. We could be splitting hairs because language is ambiguous, but let me offer my perspective. Specific is specific, measurable is measurable. I don't change those, right? Then the next letter in the acronym, A, is for achievable. Well, when we stop and we ask, how do we know? How will I know if I'm doing it checklist style? How will I know if the goal that I've set is an achievable goal? Well, there's two ways. Number one, can a human being do it? Because if a human being do it, Dr. Katrina and Jeff Klubeck can do it, right? Anybody could do it. Is it humanly possible? That's one. But I think, and we've heard in personal professional growth, what's more important is, do we believe we can? Henry Ford said, whether you believe you can or believe you cannot, you're correct. And Napoleon Hill says, whatever we believe we can achieve, right? So belief is so important, even if it's not humanly possible. If we believe we can do it, that becomes our reality. Belief is synonymous with reality. Even if truth doesn't matter, belief is a perception, on and on. So to give you an example of that, if I'm doing this in public speaking and I'll ask who in the audience is a real estate agent, and somebody will raise their hand, and I'll say, okay, great. How many deals did you do last year? 10. Okay, what's your goal this year? 15. Okay, great. 50% increase. Do you believe you could do 150? No. Do you believe you can do 16? Probably. All right. Do you believe you can do 100? No. Do you believe you can do 18? Maybe. So I want to inch people up to the threshold of belief without going over it, right? Because if we don't believe we can achieve something, we're going to prove ourselves correct. Behavior always follows belief. So when we're doing goal setting, we have to screen and filter for belief. What does the goal setter really truly believe? And what's the greatest thing they believe without going over or under? It's a tricky thing. But the idea is the belief is the reality. I believe I can do this. So then when we get to R, when I learned SMART goal setting, the R was for realistic. And I was like, wait a second, didn't we just cover that with belief? So to me, the R for realistic was redundant compared to the work that we already did with the A. screening for believability, to what degree am I engaged? Do I really believe I can do this? We cover that in the A. And then the other thing too is that if we left it at realistic, there's a little bit of redundancy there. It loses strength in the model. There's 5 letters. We want all of them to be strong and worthwhile. But it dawned on me as a coach that somebody could set a goal of brushing their teeth twice a day, every day for 30 days straight, and it would fit all of that SMART criteria. And I'm hoping that people are already doing that. So one thing that people do to avoid the accountability of falling short or failing is they set goals that are already predictable. They said, like, if I set a goal of being on your podcast, hey, that's already predictable. I don't have to do anything, lift a finger, I'm already here, right? So what I'm getting at is leaders, whether it's a coach, a manager, supervisor, director, a broker of an agency, a volunteer director of a committee in an organization, leaders have to have an acumen for helping people change behavior. And in that SMART, there wasn't any guarantee that people needed to change behavior to set a SMART goal. So what I did was I got creative and I added an A. So my SMART is SMAART. I added an A and I changed the R. So here we go. The A that I added is for ambitious. So not the size of the goal. Like, Jeff, why is your goal $1 million? Why not 5 million? Why not 10 million? Where's your ambition? So ambition isn't measured by the size of the goal here. Ambition is measured by, do you need to change behavior in order to achieve that? Do you need to decrease anything you're doing too much of right now? Do you need to increase something that you're not doing frequently enough or skillfully enough? Like if you meet with your direct reports, okay, do you meet with them weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually? Maybe you need to get better at the meeting or meet more often is what I'm getting at.
So right? You're getting so that
behavioral
if they
change.
Stretch also their competency enough so that it's ambitious enough, their belief system, and stretch their goals so that their competencies also grows with time.
Yeah, that will happen. Yeah, you got it. With the focus on that A that I added is the behavior.
Okay.
When they focus on the behavior, now it's like, to me, this is the thing that people don't do on their own very well, is change behavior, install a new habit, and intervene in an old pattern, etc. That's what leaders are supporting people on, is behavioral change. Now, when somebody's clear on the behavior that needs to change, now we can ask other questions like, do you need new information in order to change that behavior? Do you need support? Do you need a book to read? Do you need a reminder? Then we can figure out what resources somebody needs on the path of changing the behavior. But what my SMART goal setting method does is gets them to admit, acknowledge, be honest about what behaviors are eligible for change so that we can have a different result. We've heard it's tossed around for years. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. So by definition, if we set a goal, we're declaring something that we want that we don't have. By definition, it means we have to change behavior. But where was behavioral change in the SMART model? I didn't see it. And so that's what I've infused. And then the R, what do you do with the R now? Well, it's reason or reward, right? To, give credit to somebody like a Simon Sinek, who popularized Start With Why, right? Knowing your purpose has always been important, but Simon Sinek did a really good job building a great brand around Start With Why. So why do you want the goal? Why do you want to achieve this? Why else do you want it? Why else do you want it? Holding people accountable to knowing all of the reasons why they want a goal.
So the R really represents the why. Is that what you're saying?
Reason or reward. I changed it from realistic to reason or reward. What's your reward? What's the reason? Like the rule of thumb, I have a saying, if you have one reason for wanting something, you might get around to it. But if you got 6 reasons for wanting something, you can be unstoppable. Moreover, if you know what those reasons are, I know what those reasons are. Now I can remind you when you want to go back to your old patterns and habits. I can remind you why you really want something as a coach or a leader or a motivator or a source of inspiration, engagement, accountability in your life. I can say, hang on a second. You're the one that said this was one of the 3 most important things. And you said that you would be healthier, enjoy your relationship more, and earn more money if you achieve this goal. So I don't know what else you were doing that was more important than those 3 things, but let me get you back on track and let's get into your calendar to make that next appointment with yourself.
Great. And the T?
The T is time. It doesn't change. It's time. By when?
Okay, that's wonderful. Yeah. And so what would you say is the best advice you received in your business?
That's one of the most difficult questions because Dr. Katrina, I immediately saw like 17 things flash before my eyes. I'm going to get a little heart-centered here. The best advice I ever got was from my mom, rest in peace. I remember I got scared when it was time to go to college. I was going to go away to college with my buddy. It was going to be great. We're going to live together and finally be out of high school, and right. And he got scared and he decided to stay home and live locally and on and on. And then I said, I got scared too. And I went to my mom and I said, hey, Mom, I think I'm just going to stay home. I know everything here. It's going to be easier, etc. And she cut me off. She said, no, you're not. She said, you got to go. So that was the best advice I ever got in my life ever, is never to entertain that fear. Always be more afraid of staying than going, right? And so how does that translate in business? I'm a solopreneur. I built my coaching practice into a whatever it is today. It's hard to describe it, but in the worst economy since the Great Depression, I was convincing people to pay me money to talk to me. So I built it from bubblegum and paper clips. Forget coaching. All small businesses have a very low success rate. What is it? 4 out of 5 fail within the first year. And of the 20% that survive, 80% of those will fail within the first 5 years.
Right.
So here I am, well into my second decade, getting paid to talk to people. Amazing. But basically, it's like, take chances. Put yourself out there. Be vulnerable. Right? Be more afraid of the status quo than whatever come from, however well it doesn't go. So all of the advice around fall in love with mistakes, put yourself out there, be vulnerable, all of that categorically, I think that's all worked out really well for me.
Yeah, you've had a great mom, because I'm sure she wanted you to stay home, but thought of what was best interest for you.
Dr. Katrina, she didn't encourage my older brother the same way.
Oh, really?
That she encouraged me. And I will tell you that in the small little home that we lived in growing up, my bedroom, I shared a room with my brother, and he was 3 grades, but 2 years and 9 months older. But the wall that my bed was against, right? My parents' room was on the other side of that wall. And I'm not making this up. Every day for 3 months before I left for college, on the other side of the wall, I would hear my mom crying. She knew she had to cut that umbilical. She helped me believe in myself in a way I didn't at that time. And that experience has repeated itself. I love those moments where somebody sees me and their face lights up and I'm listening or observing and then they let me know that they see me in a way that's greater or bigger or better than my self-talk or my self-image. And I love those moments because now I either prove them wrong or I prove them right. And I love stepping in to the ways that successful people see me. So there you have it.
So we're coming to the end of our podcast, but one last question. So
sure.
You say you have a speaking career. So what is the key focus of your speaking career?
Well, content-wise, it's the integrity game. The integrity game is a 10-point model that I've created, and the brand promise is that you will increase your integrity when you play the game. I want people to look within. I want it to, when it comes to integrity, rather than just being something that we accuse others of not having. And I'm trying to do something different. I don't think it's been done before, but to make integrity not a quality, but a skill. Meaning a skill is something that can be improved. So I'm trying to make integrity actionable, tangible, and procedural to create a path to improve one's integrity. So when I speak now, I'm focused on that message and inviting people to play the integrity game, whether it's read the book, have me back for keynotes, lunch and learn, soft skill training, coaching, etc., group coaching, all of that stuff. But that's from a content perspective. Success as a speaker perspective, it's not about me. It's not about you. One of the top pieces of advice when it comes to speaking is get over yourself. The speaker is completely ineffective if they're thinking autobiographically. The speaker can't write their own story on stage. They have to help the audience write theirs, right? You have to have a biographical approach. We have to be audience centered, and we have to understand the diversity that exists in the audience. So we need multiple ways to describe. I can't just say 6 and expect everybody to get it. I need to be prepared to say half a dozen, 10 plus 2, 10 minus 4, to make sure the greatest percentage of my audience gets the value that's in the message. And you better make sure you're solving a problem and helping somebody with something.
Wonderful advice for speakers. So
Yeah.
I was on the board of the National Speaker Association of Las Vegas for 2 years. So I'm sure a lot of speakers are listening to what you have to say.
Yeah, I taught public speaking for 20 years, but that's the academic X's and O's of it, right? As a coach, consultant, trainer, speaking as a function of marketing or pro bono talks in the industry, et cetera. It's a slightly different animal, but public speaking is one of my favorite topics. I love discussing it.
Great. Thank you so very much for your time, knowledge. And where can people get a hold of you?
I'm very easy to find. If you just do a Google search, Jeff Klubeck, I'll come up. So you can engage with me on social media, send me a private message anywhere. But there's 2 websites that I give out. Getaclue.net is the old website, getaklu.net. That was what I built from bubblegum and paper clips. And now the new brand that I'm building is theintegritygame.com.
Wonderful. Thank you so very much, Jeffrey.
Thank you, Dr. Katrina.
Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Excellent Executive Coaching Podcast. You can subscribe to all future podcasts at excellentexecutivecoaching.com. Join us each Wednesday to learn more about the latest trends in leadership techniques and bring your coaching to the next level. To learn more about Dr. Burris's CEO Mastermind, use the contact form at excellentexecutivecoaching.com.